It all started on an ordinary school day. At least, that's what everyone thought. The students were settling into their usual routine, the buzz of chatter filling the air as notebooks opened and pens clicked. But what happened that morning would soon have the entire school talking. In the middle of a lively classroom, a teacher, known for his sharp wit and occasional sarcasm, decided to make what seemed like a harmless joke. He turned to the school janitor, an older man who had worked there for years, and pointed at a complex calculus problem scribbled across the chalkboard. "Hey, want to give this one a shot?" he said with a chuckle, assuming it would just draw a few laughs from the class. The janitor, dressed in his familiar blue overalls and usually seen quietly cleaning the halls or fixing leaky sinks, paused for a moment. The room went silent as he slowly walked toward the board. At first, a few students snickered. Others watched with curiosity, unsure of what was about to happen. No one expected him to take it seriously. After all, he was just the janitor, right? But there was something about the way he picked up the chalk. Calm, steady, like he'd done it before. The teacher raised an eyebrow, arms crossed, still half smirking. The janitor glanced at the problem, then started writing, confidently, methodically. Line after line, symbol after symbol, the once laughing students were now sitting in stunned silence, eyes glued to the board. Even the teacher's smile slowly faded into disbelief. Who was this man, really? How did he know advanced calculus? What secrets had he kept hidden in plain sight all these years? This wasn't just a surprise. It was a twist no one saw coming. And just when you think you figured it out, what happened next left the whole school absolutely speechless. As the last line of the equation hit the board, you could hear a pin drop. No one moved. No one even breathed. The teacher stood frozen, trying to process what just happened. The janitor, who everyone had seen every single day, walking the halls with a mop or fixing broken lockers, had just solved a calculus problem most students, and even some teachers, wouldn't dare touch. But this wasn't just about solving a math problem. It was about the fact that nobody had ever looked at him twice. Most people didn't even know his name. They just called him Sir or the janitor. Students passed him by daily, never wondering who he was before he wore that uniform. And now suddenly, it seemed like they didn't know him at all. Word spread fast. By lunch, the whole school was buzzing. Some students were impressed. Others were skeptical. Was it luck? Did he memorize the answers somehow? And the teacher, well, let's just say he wasn't smiling anymore. He tried to laugh it off, but you could see it in his eyes. Confusion, maybe even a little bit of embarrassment. Still, no one had the courage to ask the janitor what just happened. In the staff room, teachers whispered among themselves. A few of them had been at the school for over a decade and realized they never really had a proper conversation with the man. No one knew where he came from or what he did before joining the school. One younger teacher even said, "What if he used to be a professor?" The idea sounded wild, but after what they saw, it didn't seem impossible. Meanwhile, the janitor quietly returned to his usual routine, wiping down desks and emptying trash cans as if nothing had happened. But the look in his eyes, it had changed. There was a quiet strength, a calm confidence that no one had noticed before. And as the school tried to go back to normal, one question lingered in everyone's mind. Who is he really, and what else is he hiding? By the next morning, the principal had already heard the story, twice. Once from a teacher, and once from a group of students who couldn't stop talking about the janitor who cracked calculus like it was nothing. Curiosity turned into quiet investigations. Some of the older teachers started digging through school records, trying to find anything about the man's background. But strangely, there wasn't much. A name, a hire date, a clean work record, and that was it. No mention of previous employment, no education history. It only deepened the mystery. Students, especially those in the math club, became obsessed. They started lingering near the janitor's closet between classes, hoping for a chance to talk to him. A few brave ones asked questions. "Where'd you learn calculus?" Or, "Did you used to be a teacher?" But he just smiled and kept working. The more he stayed quiet, the more people speculated. Some believe he was once a genius who gave up everything for a quiet life. Others thought he might have been involved in something big, too big to talk about. He turned to the janitor. "Dr. Elijah Brooks, we've been looking for you for years." The room exploded into chaos. Students turned to each other, jaws dropped. The teacher stumbled back. A name had finally been spoken, and with it, a past that none of them could have imagined. The janitor didn't speak. He just looked down for a moment, then slowly met the man's eyes. Whatever he was running from, hiding from, or trying to forget, it had just caught up with him. And the story everyone thought they understood had just changed forever. The room was frozen, every eye locked on the janitor, now revealed as Dr. Elijah Brooks. The name hit like a thunderclap, echoing in whispers across the auditorium. A few teachers looked like they'd just seen a ghost. The university official stepped forward again, his voice steady but filled with something like awe. "You disappeared after the conference in 1998. No one knew why. A brilliant mind gone overnight. We thought." He paused, unsure of how to finish. Elijah finally spoke. His voice was low but clear. "I walked away because I couldn't stand what the academic world had become. Politics, pressure, constant competition. I lost the joy in what I loved most: teaching, solving, learning. So I left. Found peace in places people don't usually look. This school gave me that peace." There was silence again, but this time it felt different. Not heavy, not tense. More like reflection. A few students clapped, slowly at first, then more joined in. Even the principal stood, clearly taken by the moment. The teacher who had challenged him stood stiffly to the side, his earlier smugness now replaced with quiet regret. He finally stepped forward. "I didn't know," he said. "I shouldn't have made that joke. I let my ego get in the way." Elijah simply nodded. "We all make mistakes," he replied. "Sometimes we judge without asking questions. I've done that too." It felt like the story had found its ending: redemption, revelation, and understanding. But just as the university rep extended a hand, offering Elijah a return to the academic world, something unexpected happened. Elijah looked around the room, at the students watching him with wide, hopeful eyes, and said, "Thank you. But I'm already where I'm supposed to be." The room gasped. He turned down the offer. He wasn't going back. And then, as people processed what he'd just said, a student from the back of the auditorium stood up and held up her notebook. "Sir," she said, "could you teach us?" Elijah smiled, really smiled, for the first time. "Gladly." In the end, the real twist wasn't that he was a genius in hiding. It was that he chose to stay. Not for the recognition, not for the glory, but for the chance to inspire quietly, from behind the scenes, where he knew he could truly make a difference. From that day forward, everything at the school changed, but not in the way people expected. Elijah Brooks, once just the janitor, became something more. Not because of the title he once held or the genius he had hidden, but because of how he chose to use it. He didn't take over classrooms or step into the spotlight. Instead, he kept doing his job, walking the halls, fixing what was broken, sweeping floors. But now students stopped to talk with him. Some came with questions about math. Others just wanted to hear his thoughts on life. He always made time. The student who asked him to teach, she wasn't alone for long. Soon, Elijah started an after-school problem-solving club. No pressure, no grades, just a space where anyone could come and learn. It grew faster than anyone expected. Even students who had once struggled in math started showing up, drawn in by his calm way of explaining things, the stories he told, and the way he made learning feel less like a challenge and more like a discovery. The teacher who had mocked him stayed quiet for a while, but eventually he too joined one of the sessions. Not to teach, but to learn. It was awkward at first, but Elijah never brought up the past. Over time, mutual respect quietly formed. What had started as conflict slowly became understanding. The university official visited again, offering Elijah guest lectures, recognition, even a published article on his return. But Elijah politely declined. He didn't need headlines. "Changing one mind is enough," he said once. "Changing a few? That's a gift." The story spread far beyond the school. On social media, it was told and retold, each version adding to the legend of the janitor who shopped a classroom and chose humility over fame. But for those who were there, it wasn't just a story. It was a reminder not to judge by appearances, not to underestimate anyone, and to always stay curious, because brilliance can be found in the most unexpected places. And so, Dr. Elijah Brooks remained just as he had started, quiet, thoughtful, kind. A janitor, a teacher, a mystery, and above all, a lesson no one would ever forget. Meanwhile, the teacher who had made the original joke began acting different. He became more strict in class, less open to discussion. He didn't bring up the chalkboard incident at all. Some said he felt humiliated, like his authority had been challenged in front of everyone. Others said he might be hiding something too. Maybe he knew more about the janitor than he let on, but no one knew for sure. In the background, whispers continued to grow. One of the seniors claimed that older sibling remembered hearing about a man who used to lecture at a university overseas, someone who mysteriously disappeared from the academic world. The pieces didn't fully add up, but it made for a compelling theory. Was this janitor actually a former math professor in hiding? And if so, what had driven him to leave everything behind and take up a mop instead of a marker? As questions piled up, the tension in the school grew thicker. Every hallway conversation, every teacher glance, every passing moment seemed to carry weight. Something wasn't adding up, and it felt like they were all standing on the edge of a much bigger story. It all came to a head during the school's annual academic week. There was a buzz in the air, as always, with competitions, guest lectures, and big student presentations lined up. But this year, it wasn't the trophies or certificates everyone was talking about. It was the janitor. Whispers followed him through the halls like a shadow. Some students had started calling him Professor behind his back, half joking, half serious. Others kept their eyes on the math department, waiting to see if someone, anyone, would confront the truth. Then, without warning, a surprise announcement was made. The math department would be hosting a live problem-solving session in the auditorium, open to all students and staff. The teacher who had made the joke, the same one who triggered everything, would be presenting the challenge. It was being called the ultimate test, a nearly unsolvable calculus problem known to stump even university-level students. Rumors spread fast that the challenge was aimed directly at the janitor, though no names were mentioned. The stage was set. On the day of the event, the auditorium was packed. Teachers sat near the front, students filled the rows, and even staff from other departments dropped in. The air was heavy with anticipation. The teacher stood tall at the board, confident, marker in hand, while the principal sat quietly to the side, watching everything. Cameras were rolling for the school website, but it felt more like a showdown than a demonstration. Then he walked in, the janitor, calm, as always, eyes scanning the crowd. He didn't hesitate. He made his way to the front, nodding politely, and stood beside the teacher without a word. That moment, right there, felt like everything was about to shift. You could hear the murmurs ripple through the room, a low wave of tension building. The teacher stepped aside, gesturing toward the board with a tight smile. "Let's see what you've got," he said quietly. The janitor picked up the marker. And with that, the room held its breath. Every eye was locked on him, waiting, wondering. What would he do? Could he solve it again? Or would the truth finally come out, and with it, the story the entire school had been dying to uncover? The marker hovered over the board for a moment as the janitor stared at the problem, his eyes scanning every number, every symbol. The room was silent, holding its breath as though time itself had paused. Then, slowly and deliberately, he began to write. The strokes were confident, smooth, like muscle memory. Students leaned forward, teachers exchanged glances. Line after line, The solution began to take shape, and just when it seemed like he was about to solve it again, he stopped. Everyone watched, confused. He capped the marker and turned around, not to the audience, but to the teacher. "This equation has a flaw," he said calmly. "It's not solvable, not like this." A ripple of gasps ran through the crowd. The teacher's face flushed, a mix of frustration and disbelief. "That's not possible," he muttered. But the janitor didn't argue. He simply stepped aside and pointed at one part of the equation. "You set a trap," he said, "on purpose." And just like that, the mood shifted. What had started as a test now felt like something else entirely. Students began whispering. Was this never about the problem at all? Was it about proving a point, humiliating him publicly? That's when the second twist hit harder than anyone expected. From the back of the auditorium, a tall man in a grey suit stood up. No one had noticed him enter. He walked toward the front and introduced himself quietly to the principal. A murmur passed through the staff section. He wasn't just any visitor. He was from the local university. "I came to see if the rumors were true," he said into the mic. "And they are."